21 rules of Bitcoin. I didn't label it the 21 rules of Bitcoin because everybody's got their rules, and I'm not so presumptuous to think that I know the 21 rules, but I have my 21 rules, and I'm delighted to share them with you today. I'm going to start by framing my conversation. Bitcoin's a singularity where science collides with economics, right? This is a profound thing. Just like when science collided with astronomy in the Copernican revolution, just like when science collided with medicine and we realized that diseases aren't caused by demons, Bitcoin is where science collides with economics, and it ushers in a new age of economic insight, which will profoundly change our political systems, our financial systems, the way we think about the world. And of course, we all know this. Bitcoin's the world's first perfect money. The human race has lived for thousands and thousands of years with defective money. Seashells, bales of tobacco, glass beads, copper tokens. One day we'll look back and we'll kind of chuckle at silver tokens and copper and pieces of paper, and we'll wonder, how did the human race get this far? The implications of perfect money are profound. It's a paradigm shift. It's not like your assets are appreciating in price. You're just falling through space. This idea of relativity, you're in a relative frame of reference. Everything around you is distorted, and you have to break out of your frame of reference in order to see the world differently. Einstein did it for us with relativity, but every great scientist has done it, and Satoshi introduced a paradigm shift in economics and in monetary thought. And so, with that as my preamble, I'd like to talk about the 21 rules of Bitcoin. I'll start with rule number 1. Those who understand Bitcoin buy Bitcoin, and those that don't criticize Bitcoin. And you can see in a paradigm shift, it's just so profound. There'll be people that'll talk about it, and as long as you're talking about it, it's not clear you understand it. At the point that things click for you, you're not just going to talk about it, you're not going to criticize it, you're going to run, not walk, to the nearest place where you can buy Bitcoin. And for me, it was very clear when it clicked, I had to buy it. And on the other hand, the world's full of people that criticize it. They criticize it because they have not yet grasped the paradigm shift. And if it hasn't clicked for you, you'll have 10,000 criticisms. Rule number 2, everybody is against Bitcoin before they're for it. Right? It's not a surprise. Why is this person against Bitcoin? Why is this banker against Bitcoin? Why is this bank against Bitcoin? Why is this politician against Bitcoin? They're against Bitcoin because they don't understand it. Everybody will be against it. We're going to introduce such a profound new idea that the natural human reaction of a healthy institution, a healthy political system, a healthy intellect is to first reject it. This should not be discouraging. It should not be surprising. It's exactly and completely natural that this would happen. Rule number 3. How do you know you understand Bitcoin? Well, the way you know you understand Bitcoin is you realize that you're never fully going to understand Bitcoin. If you think you've understood it, if you've studied it, if you're sure you get it, that means you haven't quite grasped it yet. People that really embrace Bitcoin, understand it, they realize you'll never be done learning about Bitcoin. Never. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin's not just the protocol, it's not just the software, it's not just the way you interact with it or everyone else that uses Bitcoin interacts with it. it's a virus. It's an economic virus, it's a monetary virus, it's an ideological virus. It's going to ripple through time and space. So to understand Bitcoin, you have to understand how the existing sets of adopters will interact on the layer 2, the layer 3, the layer 4, the layer 5. You have to understand how the layer 3 applications will interact with each other via layer 2 protocols, via layer 1 protocols. You have to be thinking about what will people that haven't even discovered Bitcoin be doing with Bitcoin in 10 years, in 50 years, in 100 years. If you want to understand Bitcoin, you think about what will 10 billion people 100 years from now be doing with Bitcoin through 300 million different institutions across protocols and extensions of Bitcoin that have not yet been conceived and have not yet been invented. So when you consider how the idea will ripple through time, through space, through complexity, through the endless ways that humanity can organize itself, then you grasp the full scope of Bitcoin. How will an artificial intelligent entity created in 10 years, living in cyberspace 50 years from now, integrating with 1 million other AIs, use Bitcoin? Right? This is a profound chain reaction. It's a fire in cyberspace. It's viral through time, through space, through humanity, through all of the various vestiges of humanity. And of course, once you get that idea, you realize that you don't really know everything that's in the minds of 8 billion people or 300 million corporations or 1 billion things that are yet to come. And with that comes humility, and with that comes a thirst to keep studying Bitcoin. You'll never be done learning about Bitcoin. Rule number 4. Bitcoin's powered by chaos. When you take your money and you put it in a bank and you save it in a fiat currency, you're loaning your money to a country. When you take your money and you buy a stock, you're loaning your money to the management team of a company. When you take your money and you buy a building, you're loaning your money to the mayor of a city. When you take your money and you buy a piece of art, you're loaning your money and investing your money in a culture. When you actually buy Bitcoin, you're loaning your money to the lords of entropy. You're loaning your money to the gods of chaos. What's the bet? The bet is that chaos will outperform cities, companies, countries, cultures. It's a profound idea. I place you in Europe before World War II. I give you a lot of money, and I give you a choice. You can buy any piece of land in any country. You can buy any building. You can own any company in Europe. You can own art in Europe. You can invest in the currencies and the bonds of Europe. Imagine I give you a choice of buying any asset in any nation that's about to be a combatant in World War II, or you can own the one bank in Switzerland that's going to hold all the money of all the combatants. And you see, if you own that Swiss bank and everybody puts their money in the bank and the war comes, chaos comes. And the war is a metaphor for chaos and entropy accelerated in 4 years. What you realize is every building is risky. It may be blown up. Every company will probably collapse. Any piece of land may or may not have value. The rents and the rental contracts will probably be torn up. The currencies will all collapse. And in fact, the more chaos, the more destruction and devastation, the more valuable that one bank. In fact, if everybody puts their money in the bank and they all kill each other, the bank keeps the money. And it's a very profound idea. Are you in the business of benefiting from chaos? Or are you in the business of attempting to stop it? And the law of thermodynamics says you can't stop entropy, right? The more confused a government is, the more inefficient the mayor is, the more inefficient and competitive a corporation's market environment is, the more chaos and the more change in the culture, the worse all those other investments are, and the better the Bitcoin investment is. Bitcoin is powered by chaos. It's going to continually outperform everything else because the one truth in the universe is that entropy goes in one direction, chaos will continue. Walk into a casino, it's rigged. Every game is rigged against you. Maybe with the exception of poker, and when you sit down at the poker table, if you're not the professional poker player, that game's rigged against you too. Bitcoin's the only game in the casino that we can all win. That's a very sobering idea. Yeah, maybe you can win one of the games if you rig it. Maybe you can find something in life you can win for a while. If you're the expert in this business or that region or that real estate or this art dealership or something, maybe you find a game for a while that you can win, but there is no game that everybody can win all the time, right? Bitcoin is the casino. It is the house of chaos. Anybody that wants to play in that game can keep winning. In fact, right, the most profound idea here is the only way to lose in the game of Bitcoin is you don't play the game or you quit too soon until the odds come to your favor. So walk into the casino, sit down, play the game of Bitcoin, don't quit, everybody wins. Or walk out of the casino, play a different game. Over a long enough time horizon, you'll be a loser in every other game because you don't control the house, you don't control the odds. Even when you think you own the country, even when you think you own the company, even when you think you have monopoly on the market, the gods of entropy are going to upset your fragile equilibrium. Bitcoin will protect you, but Bitcoin won't protect you if you don't wear the armor. You have to suit up. What does that mean? You're going to walk through fire. You're going to go through a molten volcano. Don't armor up 1% of your body. Don't cover 5% of your body. Suit up. Buy the Bitcoin. Control the Bitcoin. Right? Maybe this means not your keys, not your coin. Maybe this means it doesn't help to tell everybody you know about Bitcoin, but be afraid to buy it. It doesn't help to buy it if you don't control it. It doesn't help, when you put 1% of your assets into Bitcoin and the rest go to zero and the 1% increases by a factor of 20 or 30 or 100, you'll be saying to yourself, I guess I got something, and then you'll look back and you'll think, I'd be a lot better if 99% of my body hadn't been burned. Maybe I could have suited up more than 1% of my body. Don't leave yourself with an Achilles heel. Rule number 7. Bitcoin's the one thing in the universe that you can truly own. How? Why? Right? It's information manifested as economic value. The network has to be durable. The network has to be decentralized. The network has to be ethical. But if you find an economically sound, technically sound, ethically sound crypto network, of which we have one called Bitcoin, then the possession of the keys is ownership of the thing. Everything else you have in your life, you own at the pleasure of someone more powerful than you. Whether it's the mayor, the governor, the nation state, the corporation, it could be anything or anyone. You think you own it, you have it until it's taken away. It'll be taken away from you by expropriation, by taxation. Maybe it'll be taken away from you by regulation. And in the absence of all those things, it'll be taken away from you by the passage of time, entropy and chaos. Except this thing. This is the thing that if you own this, the passage of time only makes it more valuable. Chaos only makes it more valuable. Nobody on earth can take it away from you. It's the first thing in human history you can own. It redefines the principle of property. Rule 8, everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. The decision to buy Bitcoin is an act of humility. It's when you can overcome your fear, your uncertainty, your doubt. It's a moment of clarity and courage. Courage to overcome the FUD. Clarity when you realize that you need to break with your convention, with your ceremony, with your rituals, with all of your history. And when you finally see things clearly, and when you finally overcome that fear, you'll buy it. In December of 2013, I looked at it and I tweeted, Bitcoin's days are numbered. It'll probably go the way of online gambling. Big mistake. Bitcoin was $892. Okay? I got the price I deserved. And when I first started buying Bitcoin, I was buying it at $9,500. But that's okay. I'll buy it at $95,000. And then I'll be buying it at $950,000. And when it gets to $950,000, there'll be some whiny person, a talking head on television, saying it looks overbought right now. It looks a little bit heated. We think it's going to trade down to 700,000. And they'll miss it. It'll go to 8 million. And they'll buy it at 8 million. And they will get Bitcoin at the price they deserve. There's a classic phrase in the world, only invest the money you can afford to lose. If I ran a casino with the deck stacked against you, I would put that as a disclaimer in my ads. Come to my casino, but only gamble the money you can afford to lose. If I ran some sort of, investment company scam and I wanted to take your money and buy swampland in Florida, or I wanted to gamble on a bunch of companies I didn't understand, I say, hey, only invest the money you can afford to lose. When you actually say only invest the money you can afford to lose in my crypto token or my casino or in my investment whatever or my idea, you're making a moral equivalence to gambling with the odds against you. Right? You're basically saying there's nothing better about what I'm offering than any foolish game that you're likely to lose. If I run a bar, and you ask me, well, how's your bar? I said, well, we serve really good drinks, but you should probably only come here on evenings when you don't have to work the next day. That's honest. Right? You're going to get drunk in my bar, you're going to underperform the next day. I'm being honest with you. But, nobody ever said, hey, only put the kids on the school bus that you don't need me to return. Only buy a ticket on my airplane if you don't need to reach the destination. Right? The engineers of the world don't say, hey, don't drive across my bridge if you really need to reach the other side. And so what I say is only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. I'm not going to equivocate. You shouldn't equivocate. People that equivocate don't understand Bitcoin, and they still don't get the idea of perfect money. We didn't invest in it because we wanted to take a risk. We invested in it, out of disgust with the world that forces us to take risk with everything else where the risks are stacked against us and undisclosed. Bitcoin's better. You know, when you embrace Bitcoin, you realize that your entire world is defined by a bunch of synthetic metrics. The CPI might come in as this, and the PPI might be that, and the employment rate is 2% or 3%, even though half of you don't have a job, and the ones that have a job aren't making as much as they were making, and everything costs 50% more. But the GDP is this, and the nominal GDP looks like that. But of course, we use the market basket of synthetic crap you don't want to buy to calculate the nominal and the real GDP. That's the matrix. You're living in the matrix. And rule number 10 is very simple. It's tickets to escape the matrix are priced in Bitcoin. You don't have Bitcoin, you cannot buy your way out of the matrix. And until you understand that you need to buy your way out of the matrix with Bitcoin, you don't understand the matrix and you don't understand Bitcoin. Rule number 11, Bitcoin insight, it's restricted to those with a need to know. You look at Bitcoin, you don't understand it. Charlie Munger doesn't understand it. Warren Buffett doesn't understand it. The bankers don't understand it. The rich people that you hate don't understand it. They don't need to know. That's why they can't see it, right? When you're comfortable and you live in the Western world and everything looks just fine to you and your cousin works at the bank, you don't have a need to know. When you have a need to know and your world comes crashing down, when you're looking at imminent death, when you're looking over the edge of the abyss, then you will understand and you will see Bitcoin for what it is. So don't be shocked when people look at it and they don't get it. They don't have a need to know. Rule number 12, all your models will be destroyed. I'm talking your political models, everything that we learned over 10,000 years. How do you run a city? How do you run a company? How do you run a country? How do you understand economics? What is inflation? What is economic prosperity? What is a job? Why should I do this? You know, when you're looking backwards, all these people, they want to look at time series of historic stuff. You know, all I see is a bunch of statisticians analyzing people with chariots and bows and arrows and camels and elephants, fighting in wars 3,000 years ago, and we show up with explosives and aircraft, and they're trying to back test their models and figure out, how explosives and aircraft impact the way they organize their elephants. It's like all the models, they don't really make any sense anymore. If you understand Bitcoin, you realize you got to throw them all away. When Godzilla walks onto the playground, all your models are worthless. They're all going to be destroyed. Rule 13, the cure to economic ill is the orange pill. Bitcoin is perfect money. Once you understand that, you realize everything you used for money in the past is toxic. Your capital is toxic. Your currency is toxic. We've been living in a world where the doctors bleed you to death. We're living in a world where they inject garbage and sludge into your brains. You're living in a world where you're eating stuff which is poisonous, right? The cure is stop putting toxic stuff in your system. The orange pill is that cure. We need to spread that cure to the world. And how are we going to spread it? Rule number 14. Before Bitcoin, don't be against fiat. Before Bitcoin, not against fiat, right? If you go to Bernard Arnault, one of the richest men in the world, and you say to Bernard, well, here's a good business, selling handbags, selling luxury items. Bernard realizes he's not going to take all his money and buy euros or buy dollar bonds or buy pesos, But that doesn't mean he won't price his handbags in euros and dollars, right? The richest man in the world still will price things in a local currency, recognizing that people would rather trade the currency for the handbag, or trade the currency for the champagne, or trade the currency for the Bitcoin, right? We're for something which is beautiful and elegant and powerful and inspirational. We don't need to be against the other thing. At the end of the day, 99% of all the wealth in the world is going to be in something other than the currency, and half of it will probably be in Bitcoin. Let's just be for it. Bitcoin's for everybody. Rule number 15. It's for the people you don't like. It's for the AI bot that took your job is going to run on Bitcoin. You'll be mad about the fact that the robo-taxi took your job or the robot took your job, but you should be happy about the fact that the robo-taxi that took your job runs on Bitcoin and wanted to buy your Bitcoin and drove up the price of your Bitcoin by a factor of 10 or 100 or 1,000, right? Your enemy is going to buy Bitcoin. The people that launch the ETF and buy the ETF that you don't agree with, that come from a place you don't like, they're going to drive up the value of your Bitcoin by a factor of 1,000, and you don't have to like them, and you don't have to embrace their ideology. What you should realize is the more people that join the Bitcoin system, whether they're your friend, your enemy, the religion you love, the religion you don't care for, the country that you're at odds with, they're all helping Bitcoin. And if you are true to Bitcoin, they'll be helping you. Rule number 16, learn to think in Bitcoin. I see a lot of people that they hold Bitcoin, and they still don't think in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been going up 50% a year for the past 4 years. That means the risk-free rate, the cost of capital is 50%. So you have the option to borrow money at 5%, loan it to Bitcoin at 50%, and keep the 45% difference. And I'll meet Bitcoin businesses that they want to actually raise money and loan it to someone at 15% that's a counterparty. Why would you loan to a counterparty at 15% when you can loan to Bitcoin at 50%? Right? Why would you invest? I have an investment idea for you. Is it a risk-free 50% return? Let's be conservative. I think, Bitcoin will appreciate 24% a year for the next 10 years conservatively. That's the risk-free rate. You have an idea for me? Give me an idea that returns more than 24% a year, plus the risk premium, scalably for the next decade, then maybe it's interesting. Most people, they just have the wrong idea in their head. They don't think in Bitcoin, they make mistakes. Rule 17, you don't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a swarm of cyber hornets. It's a thundering herd of 8 billion people. It's going on for far beyond your lifetime, and it's much bigger and stronger and more powerful and more intelligent than you are, right? It's like Taleb writes about intellectual yet idiots, like people with PhDs in aeronautical engineering that give speeches on how to make birds fly better. It's like if you find yourself as the guy with the PhD lecturing eagles on how to fly, you're the person that thinks you can change Bitcoin, right? You're not smarter than Bitcoin. You're not smarter than 300 million companies and 8 billion people and 80 billion people yet to be, right? The world is big. The market is big. You're not going to change it. You're going to try to change it, but it'll be a lot smarter for you to change yourself. We used to joke about laser eyes. Rule 18, laser eyes protect you from endless lies. People thought, this is just a meme. Laser eyes, laser ray to 100K. It's not a meme. This is going to save you. When who do I feel sorry for? It's like I feel sorry for people that put on the laser eyes, watch Bitcoin go up $20,000, and then take the laser eyes off and declare victory. Right? Don't take the laser eyes off. The laser eyes tell you a message, which is they signify the fact that you should avoid dilutive distractions. Right? When Bitcoin goes from 10,000 to 100,000 and you declare victory, so you launch 16 crappy businesses and 14 stupid industries because you're a genius, right? You took the laser eyes off. Pride cometh before a fall, and Bitcoin is going from $1 trillion to 10 trillion to 100 trillion to 500 trillion, and at that point it'll be growing better than everything else. And there's someone that wants to take laser eyes and focus on this thing as long as the joke is good, and then they're going to drift off to launch 82 other things. Well, let me tell you, there's 2.8 million mobile apps created for the iPhone, and you probably can't name a dozen that worked. There's 1.8 million extensions in Chrome, and you probably don't use 2 of them. Right? There's a 99.9% mortality rate on new business ideas, but you're sure yours is going to work? Right? Laser eyes are about humility, but everybody is going to BS you. They're all going to tell you that they've got this great idea that's better than Bitcoin, the next Bitcoin. Bitcoin had its run, and then you're going to lose your focus. You're going to get distracted, maybe because you made a lot of money by buying Bitcoin at 100 and selling it at 5,000 because you were a genius and you got out at 5,000 and then you launched 16 other crappy, stupid businesses where you're just like everybody else, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, the mayor banned my business. Oh, the government taxed my business. Oops, it turns out that Microsoft wants to enter this business. Oops, I didn't realize that, that employee would steal whatever, the money from this business. Oops, the bank failed. And then you will rediscover everything that Satoshi knew when Satoshi invented Bitcoin. Laser eyes are here to protect you, right? Embrace them, right? Don't belittle them. And it takes me to my next point, which is, respect Bitcoin, or it'll make a clown out of you, right? I mean, I come to Bitcoin, I've spent all my time trying to learn Bitcoin. I realize I still don't learn Bitcoin. I still don't know everything there is about Bitcoin. But what I do appreciate about Bitcoin is it's bigger than all of us. It's stronger than all of us. It'll outlive all of us, right? When someone shows up and says, I just heard about Bitcoin, I'm here to fix it, right? Don't be that guy, right? Have some respect for this thing. We're almost done. I would be remiss in giving a presentation of 21 rules of Bitcoin if I didn't mention this rule. You do not sell your Bitcoin. What do I mean? Bitcoin is energy. Bitcoin is life. Don't squander your life. Conserve your energy. Right? I give you energy for, don't let the fire go out. When the fire is what keeps your family from freezing, do not let the fire go out. Right? You have a life, it's beautiful, you can do beautiful things. Don't throw yourself off a cliff. Right? And Satoshi gave you economic energy. You can capture it, you can own it, you can conserve it. Don't throw it away. Economically, Bitcoin's going up 50% a year for the past 4 years. Every time you sold it, you gave up the best performing asset in the world to buy what? Diversification is selling the winner to buy the losers. When do you sell your Bitcoin? When your family's going to die, you sell your Bitcoin. When you need it to conserve your life, the lives of those you love, then yeah, you trade it, you borrow against it, but you only need one chair. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Everything else is inferior. The world, by the way, the entire world is constructed to convince you to sell your Bitcoin. Everybody wants you to trade your Bitcoin for their hedge fund, for their stock, for their idea, for their whatever it is. And you just have to keep in mind that, like, no one is getting rich by telling you not to give them your money. And we've arrived at the 21st rule of Bitcoin. Spread Bitcoin with love, not hate. Violence invites violence. Aggression inspires resistance. Satoshi, forgive them, they know not what they do. People don't understand Bitcoin, they're going to resist you, they're going to be afraid of you, they fear what they do not know. But when you come across someone that doesn't like Bitcoin, they call it a scam, they call it whatever was the last most colorful thing that someone said about it, your reaction ought to be, hey, they don't have a need to know, they don't understand. The world consists of people that need Bitcoin and they don't understand it, but they will. And those that need Bitcoin and they're in the business of getting it. When someone doesn't understand it and they treat you poorly and they're mean to you or they're aggressive or they're violent to you, the best thing you can do is just say they don't understand it. If you understood it, you wouldn't feel that way. Because if you push back against them with hate, that just slows down their learning path. They're just going to learn slower, they're going to adopt slower. If you actually treat them with kindness, they'll remember they were mean to you and they'll feel bad about it when they discover Bitcoin, and they'll come back and they'll embrace it. You make it easier for people to embrace Bitcoin and they'll do it faster. Don't give people the excuse that Bitcoiners are mean, they hate me, they were violent to me, right? Because then the entire topic just shifts to, a struggle, over some tangential thing which was irrelevant. So go place to place, door to door, person to person, institution to institution, nation to nation. Offer them something which is going to make their life better. Offer it with love, not hate. I have prepared a new presentation. A few years ago, I created one called the 21 Rules of Bitcoin. This one's the 21 Truths of Bitcoin. And preparing for this, I asked myself, what is true today in the year 2025? And perhaps what are the truths that the mainstream world, the mainstream media, traditional investors, politicians, people that are just getting familiar with Bitcoin, with digital assets, what is it they don't know that seems very, very clear to me that I want to share? And so I've gathered my favorite 21 truths of Bitcoin today, and I'm going to start with the first. Bitcoin's an ideology. Freedom versus slavery, innovation versus stagnation, sovereignty versus dependency, property versus poverty. It's a very powerful ideology. It's spreading the entire world, and there would be no Bitcoin without the ideology. It's capitalism versus socialism. It's the individual versus the collective. It pops up throughout human history. We see these themes for the last thousands and thousands of years. You see these themes in the writings of the Austrian economists. You see these themes in the writings of Voltaire and the intellectuals of the 19th, the 18th, the 17th century. You even see these themes in the Constitution of the United States. The founding fathers had this ideology, and you'll see it echoing throughout Bitcoin. The second truth of Bitcoin is protocol. Satoshi created a protocol based on that ideology. The 21 million coins, the block sizes, the 10-minute centers, the SHA-256 hashing. It was an integrated protocol. It's not the only way you could have done it, you know. You could have base 10 math, but you could have base 2 math. You could have English as a protocol, but there's also French as a protocol. Bitcoin's a protocol for prosperity. It's a protocol for economic success, economic empowerment. And that protocol lives on in the software. Oftentimes people say, well, what about this quantum thing, or what about that technology thing? And the point that I make to them is that English language is a protocol. If you have to upgrade the software, you'll probably upgrade the software, keep the language. Base 10 math is a protocol. If you have to upgrade the software, rebuild the computer, you'll probably keep the base 10 math. Bitcoin is a protocol. You may change the hardware, you may change the software, you may change the nodes. The protocol is simple. A bunch of intelligent people everywhere in the world would like to keep their money forever. Once $1 trillion worth of money flows into that network, they'll be looking to figure out how to keep it. And then when it's 10 trillion or 100 trillion or 500 trillion, you'll have a bunch of people speaking a language of economics, a monetary language. That is the Bitcoin protocol. Truth number 3, Bitcoin's an asset. One of those 21 million coins pops out. A lot of people just focus on the asset. They forget the ideology. They don't really notice the protocol. They think, do I have a Bitcoin or not? What kind of asset? It's the apex asset. It's better than cheese. It's better than palladium. It's better than gold. It's better than silver or copper or land or goats or cattle or lumber or pieces of paper that we call currency. Bitcoin is the asset, right? It is the asset based upon the ideology and the protocol that results in the greatest monetary premium in the world. Truth number 4, it's not just an asset. Bitcoin's a network. Bitcoin is not just a network, it's the network. It's the most powerful computer network in the world. It's a global network. Without the network, you can't have the asset. The asset is stored in the network. The network is a manifestation of the protocol. The network creates decentralization, that's true, but it also creates fault tolerance, mission criticality, redundancy, and all of the other technical, economic, and ethical qualities of the asset and of the movement. An ideology that spawned a protocol resulting in an asset that circulates on a network. That would be a simple articulation of what Bitcoin is. It's a truth. I would hazard to guess that the great majority of people watching the price of Bitcoin don't think about all 4 of those things. And they don't think about this as much as they should. Bitcoin is immaculate. Truth number 5. It was spawned by the Immaculate Conception. A nameless, faceless programmer gave it as a gift to the world. How do you create an immaculate thing? It's a God-given thing. It's a natural thing. We've had it since the beginning of time. No one took beneficial claim to it. No one asserts control over it. No one expects to cash in on it. The Immaculate Conception is an extraordinarily important thing to the network. That, combined with truth number 6, Bitcoin is ethical. What makes something ethical? What makes it ethical is you can take title to it, you own it, no one can debase it, no one can take it from you, no one can corrupt it, no one can control it. It's a thing of natural beauty. No country will ever trust anything that another country can debase or control. No company will ever trust anything another company owns or controls. No person will ever trust anything controlled by another person. In order to reach this great plateau of ethical, it has to be beyond the corrupting influence of any human, any man-made institution, any organization of people in the world. The Immaculate Conception was a necessary condition, but the engineering brilliance of Bitcoin was another condition, right? Bitcoin's it's a perfect machine made of imperfect components. That's the brilliance of the engineering. Can you make something that can a human being make something that other humans can't corrupt? Bitcoin's ethical. Truth number 7, that makes Bitcoin a commodity. What is a commodity? An asset without an issuer. Gold's a commodity. Corn is a commodity. Lumber is a commodity. Why is this important? Because in law, commodities have a special status. A company in the United States can be capitalized on commodities. It cannot be capitalized on securities. There's actually a special carve-out in corporate law for publicly traded companies. But maybe more importantly, I can stand here and I can tell you that I think the price of Bitcoin will go to 13 million over 20 years. I couldn't say that about a security, right? You have legal immunity to actually express your opinion about a commodity. That makes commodities politically superior, legally superior, ethically superior, financially superior to a non-commodity, to a security. And it's not just a little bit better, it's 100 times better, right? And so Bitcoin is a commodity. Bitcoin is actually the commodity. I studied commodities in my early professional years. Every other commodity can be created with technology, with capital, with know-how. If you were going to take your family's life savings and buy a commodity to hold for 100 years, and you thought about it, would you buy soybeans or corn or oil or natural gas or lumber, coal, silver? Well, no, they're all awful, and you know why they're awful, because it's pretty obvious to you that 100 years ago it was harder to make those things than it is today. And if the price of oil goes to $1,000 a barrel, we're going to frack it, triple frack it, hyper frack it, and we'll drive the price of oil down. Same with gold. There's been hyperinflation in gold multiple times. You know, the California 49ers found gold. We created so much gold that we crashed the economy of Europe. Every other commodity is going to actually explode in supply with technology and with price. That makes them all garbage investments for a long-term investor. They're in fact the worst possible investments as a long-term store of value. The king of them, gold, still underperforms the S&P index by a factor of 2 or more. So there's only one commodity in the history of the human race that wasn't a garbage investment. The one commodity is Bitcoin, right? A digital commodity. And let's talk a bit more about that. Why is it not garbage? Why is Bitcoin great? Bitcoin is a digital commodity. Every other commodity I can name is a physical commodity. Physical commodities are God-given, and anyone in the world can create them. Digital commodities were created by the brilliance of human beings in a fluke. You needed to have a brilliant engineer, Satoshi, give away this gift to the world. The world needed to embrace the gift. The protocol needed not to be defective. And after many, many years of not knowing whether it was something or nothing, it spontaneously monetized and came to life. It really is a miracle of the 21st century. Why is a digital commodity important? Well, you can vibrate a digital commodity 60 times a second on a computer. You can move a digital commodity at the speed of light. The AIs can decompose and recompose a digital commodity millions of times an hour, simultaneously moving it and distributing it all around the world at the speed of a computer. Can't do that with palladium. Can't do that with gold. There's no way Apple Computer's ever going to ship an upgrade that has multi-factor authentication on a physical commodity. It needs to be a digital commodity, and that's what makes Bitcoin special. Not only is it a digital commodity, it is the digital commodity. The most profound thing that happened is 2 weeks ago, the president signed into law via the executive order, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. David Sachs said, Bitcoin is an asset without an issuer, spawned via an immaculate conception. It is decentralized. We recognize it as a store of value. It is our digital gold. You have the most powerful person in the world and members of the cabinet that are saying that it's the policy of the United States government that Bitcoin is the one digital commodity in the world. That's going to ripple. And, you know, I can create a digital commodity, theoretically, an asset without an issue, and I can give it a protocol that inflates it 5% every year. I could create any kind of inflationary monetary protocol. For example, corn and oil are commodities. No one doubts the fact they're commodities, but they're not scarcity. They're not capped. Bitcoin wasn't just a brilliant creation of a digital commodity. Bitcoin was brilliant because Satoshi capped the supply at 21 million. If I give you an inflation rate of 2% and the supply of gold, the economic half-life of your wealth is 36 years. When I give you an inflation rate of 0% in your digital gold, the half-life of your economic wealth is infinite. It is forever. The difference between 2% inflation and 0% inflation is you're dead in 36 years with 2% inflation, and you live forever with 0% inflation. Next time someone tells you that it's just a little bit of inflation and the 2% doesn't matter, I just want you to think about that, the half-life of 36 years versus the half-life of 1 billion years. And of course, with that observation, it stands to reason. The next truth is Bitcoin truly is digital gold. Gold, what does it represent? Gold represents money and wealth in the human race for 10,000 years. It represents prosperity. It represents the king commodity. It represents the most ethical, virtuous, technically sound money. And the vast majority of the people in the world, they're not invested in digital assets. They're not invested in Bitcoin. They don't even know what we're doing here. You're probably, you know, if you lined up 100 people on the street, you know, to say that you're the top 1% is probably an understatement. You're at least ahead of 99%. So for the mainstream, when you say digital gold, what that tells them is that instead of giving away a gold medal at the Olympics, maybe it's time for a Bitcoin medal at the Olympics. What it means is that the golden age will give way to the Bitcoin age. What it means is a city with streets paved in gold maybe should be paved in Bitcoin. What it means is that if something is gold-plated, and that's how you monetize anything, a gold-plated lighter, a gold-plated pen, maybe it should be Bitcoin-plated, right? This is a very profound thing, right? The truth, Bitcoin is digital gold. We dismiss it as being kind of a boomery idea, but the boomery idea means Bitcoin's worth more than 20 trillion because that's what the gold is worth. But the truth is everything digital in our modern era is worth 10x the analog version. If Bitcoin is nothing more than digital gold, Bitcoin is worth $200 trillion. If it's nothing more than digital gold. But of course it is more than digital gold. Because truth number 11, Bitcoin is digital money. JP Morgan said gold is money, everything else is credit. Money, a bearer instrument. I give it to you, I don't have it, you have the money. Well, Bitcoin is money. What is everything else circulating in the internet? Credit. What does that mean? It means that I send you something, I send you a fee over a credit card network. 45 days from now, maybe it will be transferred to your account after the credit card company takes 2%, right? In a world of digital credit, that means that it takes 4 years for the money to move 40 times, and at the end of the 4 years, all the money's gone. In a world of digital money, it means you can move the money once a second. Maybe you can move the money 60 times a second. You move the money 60 times a second for a 20th of a penny, you still have the money. The computers are not going to think one click, one settlement every 30 days. They're not going to agree to pay 200 basis points per vibration of the money, right? Digital money is profound. It's so profound that everybody in the business of managing money doesn't even understand what this means. When they understand what this means, then the industry is going to 100x. Bitcoin is going to go to the moon. Well, if Bitcoin is digital money, what else is it? Well, truth number 12. Bitcoin is perfect money. Okay? What is perfect money? If you read the writings of the Austrian economists, von Mises and Hayek, they write about money, but they couldn't conceive of perfect money. Voltaire, Aristotle, Plato, they couldn't conceive of perfect money. Why? They didn't have the technology. It's kind of like asking Aristotle, tell me about clean water. How do you understand clean water if you don't have a microscope and you don't understand that there are pathogens in the water? Nobody understood perfect money until Satoshi gave it to us, and that's because it was impossible to create perfect money before modern semiconductors, modern internet, modern cryptography. So they were struggling, and you can see Hayek and von Mises, they struggle with this notion. In the Constitution, the founding fathers, who were pretty intelligent, said the only legal money in this country is going to be gold and silver coin. They kind of knew this idea, a commodity in your hand, a self-custodied commodity bearer instrument felt like good money. What they designated as perfect money in the Constitution, and we have drifted, a little bit away from that, they designated what they saw were the hardest commodities and the most liquid fungible commodities that could be used as a monetary token. And they were never perfect because you can't practically do every transaction by swapping gold and silver coins, and because gold and silver coins aren't hard capped, they have inflation. So they had defective money that was slowly decaying, that was not quite useful, but it was just, they used to say it's the worst possible way to do it except for every other way, right? And so the significance of this truth, this basically marks the point where economics goes from being a superstition and an art form to being a scientifically based engineering discipline. You can't engineer an economic system or a monetary system before you have perfect money. It's just like trying to do good math, but 2 + 2 = 5 on Tuesday, and it equals 4 on Wednesday. And if you don't have stable numbers, you can't do math. And if you don't have stable money, you can't do economics. If you can't drink water that's not going to kill you, life is pretty ugly, right? This is profound truth. Again, misunderstood. No economist trained in the past 100 years, they never took a course on perfect money. They never imagined it. But you can't really blame them. It's like if you went back to Voltaire and you said, okay, that's the smartest guy in the 18th century in France, and he wrote shelves of books. But poke him and say, describe, radioactivity to me, and how are we going to build mobile phones and satellite communications? And he would have thought, what are you talking about? Right? It's like the most brilliant person without the instrument, the technology, can't conceive of the rational thing. And that takes us to truth 13. Bitcoin is legitimate. A short phrase, a powerful phrase. It wasn't legitimate 4 months ago. A year ago, if you try to remember where you were and what you were thinking in March of 2020, when the entire crypto industry was under massive onslaught, everybody's getting sued, right? And the most likely future was everything gets ground into the dirt. We have completely come 180 degrees. This is the most powerful person in the world sitting in the most sacred place, the Oval Office, flanked by 2 cabinet members telling you Bitcoin is digital gold, a store of value, a commodity. Not just a commodity. If the U.S. seized 10,000 securities, all your artwork, all your houses, your planes, your trains, your automobiles, every currency, everything of value, your diamonds, your gold brooches, your silver, they'd sell it, right? The only thing the United States does not sell is its national parks, its nuclear stockpiles, and its Bitcoin. Now that's a shockwave that will be heard around the world. That just happened, literally days ago. It's going to take a while for that to ripple through the entire federal government. Then it will ripple through the state governments. Then it will ripple through the banking system, the insurance system, the credit rating agencies. Then it will ripple to all the banks in Mexico and El Salvador and Argentina and then Europe. It's rippling through the banks in Hong Kong and China and Japan and Abu Dhabi and Europe. How long will it take? Well, how long does it take for a profound good idea to move its way through layers and layers of bureaucracy? It'll take a while, but the innovators will actually grab this, and those that need the money, that want the money, will reach for and embrace the money, and they will be enriched by it, and there will be others that will resist it. But that entire shockwave, right, that explosion in legitimacy, that happened just a few weeks ago, happened on a Thursday night in the White House. And that's profound. We are legitimate. And as I've said before, if Bitcoin's not going to zero, it's going to 1 million. Right? It's either nothing or it's something. And if it's something, then it's going up. And truth 14, Bitcoin is corporate. I talked a little about corporate law. I'm very sensitive to it because I ran a public company for many years. We came public in '98. Every public company in the world is capitalized on one of two things. You're either going to capitalize on short-dated treasuries or sovereign debt, in essence currency, or you're going to capitalize on a commodity. Well, it turns out that every commodity other than Bitcoin underperforms the S&P index. It doesn't beat the cost of capital. So capitalizing upon silver or gold or palladium or oil makes no sense. There is one commodity that you can put 100% of a corporate balance sheet in. And that one commodity is a digital commodity, and that digital commodity is called Bitcoin. And so what does it mean? It means that for the first time in 100 years, companies can recapitalize, and they are recapitalizing. And what does that mean? That means a company starts by sweeping a little bit of excess cash, and then cash flows, and then it sells some equity, and then it issues some debt, and then another company follows, and another company follows. Right now, there's about 80 companies that are starting to buy Bitcoin, and there's probably 80 ETFs. We're going to see another one every week and another one every week, and pretty soon there'll be hundreds. And those hundreds become the gateways for hundreds of trillions of dollars of equity capital and fixed income capital to migrate into the entire digital assets economy. And you can see it right in front of your face. You see a company like Metaplanet goes from one hotel being worth a few $1 million to being worth $1 billion in 12 months. Where does it stop? It's not going to stop, right? If you're legitimate, you're corporate, right? You're going to see a transformation of mainstream organizations. The 15th truth, Bitcoin is global. Everywhere in the world I go, I meet someone and they say, well, thanks because I bought a Bitcoin for my daughter, or I bought a Bitcoin for the family. We appreciate what you're doing. And you know what I say? I say thank you because I appreciate what you're doing. Bitcoin is global, Your Apple stock isn't. Your land isn't, right? The artwork that you hold isn't global, right? Bitcoin is a global asset. It means somebody in Nigeria buys it and they're getting the benefit of entrepreneurs in Manhattan. And it means someone in Arkansas buys it, and they're actually in an economic relationship with somebody in Singapore, right? This is not a lowest common denominator thing. You own Arkansas real estate, no one's going to fish you out of that investment. You own Bitcoin, you bury it in your backyard in Arkansas, and you'll wake up in 30 years and find out that someone in Tokyo or London made you rich. Right? This is the global asset. There isn't another asset that trades on Wall Street that is global in the way that Bitcoin is. You know, and it's not just global, it's immortal. We're stretching in time and space. Show me an asset that stretches to every part of space that truly is global, Bitcoin. Now show me one that I can see into the next 100 years or 1,000 years. There's nothing else that you own that's going to last 100 years, right? Your warehouse will have to be redone. Your artwork will probably have to be restored, right? What company would you think is going to be around 200 years from now, right? The real beauty of Bitcoin is the elegance of the protocol is all you're doing is buying 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever. Okay, when is that going to obsolesce? Like when are you not going to want to own 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever? Right? It's not like iPhone 99. It's not like, you know, getting the next upgrade on the whatever gadget. Right? Bitcoin is immortal because the idea is so timeless and so elegant, and the network is just virally going to spread. You know, it's a life form. And if it's immortal, it means you can actually think 200 years in advance. No company expects to live more than 10, 20, 30 years. Everybody's short term. It takes me to truth number 17 is digital energy. A calorie is organic energy, a Satoshi is digital energy. If you want the AI, if you want to put life in cyberspace, if you want to bring an AI to life, you have to imbue it with digital energy. Then it comes to life. Then it thinks, then it lives, then it procreates, maybe it lives forever. You can't, anything that is funded with digital credit is just a shadow. It's, you know, it's a shade, it's a ghost. If you want something to be a true life form, you have to put real energy into it. I've said many times before, Bitcoin is a conservative asset. I give it to you, I don't have it. It implements conservation of energy in cyberspace, but the more important point is it's going to bring life to cyberspace. Truth 18, if it's digital energy, then Bitcoin's a digital energy network. How do you move energy from point A to point B? How do you vibrate energy, right? How do you do it in a rapid, at the speed of a computer rate? How do you bring the entire world into that relationship? You can't do it with a credit IOU, and certainly you're not shipping gold from New York to Tokyo in a second. Which takes us to truth number 19. If it's an energy network, Bitcoin is a digital economic system. How do you post $10 million for 5 minutes, you know, with a company across the country and fetch it back? How do, you know, vibration, how do I give it to someone, take it back in 18 seconds? How do I swap a capital asset for a currency asset? We see this in DeFi, right? I'm swapping Bitcoin for stablecoin for Bitcoin, but think more broadly, right? Think about a world of 1 billion robots talking to 1 billion AIs that are thinking at the speed of the computer that want to actually transact millions and millions of times an hour in time and space. They're going to do it with a digital energy network. And that takes us to truth 20. If it's an energy network, I can reverse it. Bitcoin becomes a digital defense system. Bitcoin is the most powerful network. What's the unit of power? The exahash. If I actually place my cryptographic keys, my identity, my authentication behind that hash wall, behind that wall of digital energy, then I can secure a system, authenticate a system, defend a system, potentially even attack a system. You know, you can't be a superpower if you lose control of your airspace. You can't be a superpower if you lose control of outer space. You can't be a superpower if you lose control of cyberspace. You know, control of the digital power network, the mining network, the hash network is control of the ability to move energy and capital from point A to point B. Control the network, control your destiny. Lose control of the network, you lose the ability to engage in digital commerce. Maybe you lose the ability to secure your cyber systems. It's a defense system. And with that, I'll end with my final truth, truth 21. Bitcoin is an emerging solar system. Everybody says it's a network, and then they go, yeah, I read something about Metcalfe's law. And Metcalfe's law is like knowing enough to hurt yourself. It's not a Metcalfian network. It's a Newtonian network. Bitcoin is an evolving network. Think a star system forming. There is matter, there is energy. It's the brightest thing in the financial universe. It's got a magnetic field. It is slurping energy, capital, into the magnetic field. There are objects in orbit. They're falling into orbit around it. All of you are in orbit around it to a certain extent. Every company, every country, every actor. It is getting more powerful. It will continue to get more powerful. It will continue to get brighter, right? A Metcalfian idea is like a little asteroid went past on the left and a white dwarf went past on the right, and they're both equal. Well, they're not equal. The white dwarf is going to suck the atmosphere off my planet, and the little asteroid is irrelevant. It's like a cute little shooting star. It made a little spark for me, right? This is not a little Metcalfian network. This is a network where when someone brings $1 billion to the network, it matters. When they bring 10 billion, it matters more. When they bring 100 billion, it matters more. The more capital, the more energy that flows in the network, the more powerful, the greater the gravitational field. Eventually, anyone in the orbit, right, has to adjust their trajectory in order to accommodate that gravitational field. You see this thing coming to life in front of you. It's going to have Newtonian dynamics, and it is an energy system emerging. And these are the 21 truths. And with that, I want to thank you all. Thanks for supporting Bitcoin. Thanks for being here today.